Hello and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Joey Evans.
And today we have Joan of Arc, Orleans, the Roll-In Right.
Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's very beautiful. It's brought over by Capstone Games. It was originally a DLP game.
Yep.
And I have to say this is a much better version, though
Right.
we still have comments on that. Let me go ahead and show you how it goes, how it plays,
How it plays,
is.
how it exists.
Yes.
Yes,
And
in
then
this
we'll talk a
world.
little bit more about that.
Yep.
Joan of Arc is a roll and write game for 1 to 5 players. Everyone gets a player mat. We have these little tiles over here that go in the back, and then the cards over here that people can collect throughout the game. Now, with any good roll and write, this basic mat here is the basis of the game. We have over here the map that you're moving around, collecting goods and circling cities. We have the explanation of actions up here. These are additional optional action things that you can take. We have our pantry for goods, our little storehouse for money. And down here is a book track, which is an endgame multiplier. Now, these little spots over here, this is location cards. This is an optional setup so that you don't have to use the cards for randomization, but you're welcome to use that. This is also good if you want to play virtually with other people across long distances. First things first, let's talk about the general round structure. So we have a bag with all these little worker pieces. The player with the bag, or the first player for that round, will draw out as many pieces as there are players plus 1. Everyone will then take turns drafting and performing an action based on what the tile is. So each player will get 1 action, and then the person that had the bag that round will get 1 additional action. And then the next player, the bag will be passed on and they will draft again, continuing forward until the bag is empty. Once the bag is empty, all the tiles will be placed back inside, and then you'll continue forward playing as many bags full as there are players. Now let me explain the basic actions of the game. So you have this nice little lady over here that is holding goods. She just lets you gain 1 good over here in your storehouse. You have this little gray character down below, and he lets you gain 1 on the book track. You've got ways to move on the map. As you move, you start out in City 0. You can move along any land track. As you do so, you gain the benefits of what you pass by. The same thing happens with the water character. So down here, you can move on the water track, or you can gain $1. It's the very same thing. You start out on the city that you have access to, and you can expand out via waterways, just moving 1 distance between city to city as you do so. Now, once you've expanded, you can expand further. So basically, you can expand from anything you've already been at before. Now, up here, we have this little builder guy with the axe. You can either gain $1 or you can spend $1 to circle a city that you are connected to via road or canal. And then finally, you have this guy over here. This lets you gain the location cards. You can spend $1 or you can gain a location card by paying its cost. As a side note on these location cards, the cost is on the top, the reward is on the bottom. Some of these are additional to whatever the action is that you're taking, and some are alternate actions, so you can do that instead of the basic action. And these basically are available. There's different levels in each column, and as the game progresses, more columns become available. So for example, column 1 is available at the beginning. As soon as someone buys anything from column 1, then 1 and 2 are now available. As soon as something is bought from column 2, then 1, 2, and 3 are now available, and so forth. Now, if you don't like the action that you have, you can spend your coins in this little area up here. So I could spend a blue dude, cross him off. I gain this bonus at the bottom, which would be a good and a book. Now, once I've done this all 3 times using all the 3 different possible action tokens, then I can gain the reward at the bottom. This reward is first come, first serve, which means that everybody else crosses it off once I gain it, and nobody else can use that section 1 to gain alternate actions. Now, there's a few other benefits as we go through. As you can see, if you gain full columns or full rows of any of these items, you gain points, you gain extra abilities. Anything in these octagons down here are the one-time use. So whoever, it's first come, first serves, whoever gets it gains those bonuses. But then everything else that's not in an octagon, anybody can gain for completing rows and columns and such. Now this book down here, this book track is endgame multipliers, which is what these stars are, as well as a few other bonuses as you go through. So at the end of the game, you will multiply the amount of cities that you have circled times these octagons that you've circled, which are kind of bonuses here. Those are plus, times the stars. And then you also add up any victory points that you gain from your pantry, from your coins, any monks that you haven't spent. These are basically wilds that you start with, and if you don't spend them, you gain points. And then finally, there's a little castle track on the bottom, that is just worth points if you have overflow of pantry items or a few other things. So that's how you play the whole game. The person with the most points wins.
Okay, so that is a quick how to play Joan of Arc Orleans drawn right. That's a mouthful.
Rolling right.
It's drawn right.
You draw roads, but you don't really write anything, actually.
You use a
You
pencil.
circle.
Circle and right. No, draw and circle. Anyway.
Pencil and write.
Yes. So that is pretty much how you play it. And initially, if you've played Orleans, then the entire board, the workers, everything is going to look, you're going to know what's going on. Right off the bat.
Sure. The piece, like all of the artwork is the same.
It is.
The boards, or like the little maps the same. The worker tiles that you're pulling out of the bag are significantly larger.
Right.
But they are the same.
Yes.
Same pictures, yeah.
Which hearing that could excite you or depress you. So
depending on if you care how much it looks like.
right.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I mean, if you're like all about the nostalgia, you want everything to look just like Orleans, you're gonna be so excited.
It's interesting because mechanically you can see the same lifeblood flowing through
Right.
this roll and write, but it's definitely not the same game.
No. And well, one big thing is as far as like the roads and stuff, you have a meeple in Orleans that you move around. This one you just kind of branch out.
You just kind of
as
go
move.
anywhere.
Yeah, which also it gives you a lot more freedom of movement.
It's interesting too because there's more interaction in this than I expected in a roll and write.
I agree.
It's a lot of racing to things. So if I'm going to build in a building, that's cool. You can't build there now, or I guess in a city. Same thing if you get some of the bonuses in the upper left, like the alternate worker options.
Yeah, and that kind of got me at first because normally a roll and write, everyone's playing their own sheet and there's very little play interaction, but this one is like you've got to have the race of if you're going for 3. And I found myself looking at everybody else's board and I'm like, whew, I got to build that 3 before they build the 3,
Right.
So it's interesting. It adds that extra element, I think, that most roll and writes don't have.
Now, do you feel like it was a roll and write to its core?
Yes.
Like it gave you a lot of those same feels that you want, the combo awesomeness.
It didn't give you it did towards the end give you that cascading, because that is one thing I do love is that building cascading that you can keep going. Hadrian's Wall has a lot of these have it, and this has it towards the end, but it's a lot more build up to get to that point. I think you got to that point a bit quicker than I did.
Yeah, so there's those columns. Like there's kind of the rows and columns you're filling up with money, you're filling up with goods.
Right.
There's the book track at the bottom. I feel like it has all those roll and write feels that you get of like comboing stuff. But like you said, it takes a little bit longer to get there. There's a little bit more work. Like you have to really focus in on something to get those rewards, especially if you want them earlier. But I like it. I feel like I get a lot of that wonderful bonus that I get. And I think the drafting element is very cool.
I do too, and I like the drafting element is great, but the different paths to victory, because at one point I was playing with you, and I remember I looked over and you were going a completely different avenue. You were going to the top left.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been ignoring that. And I'm like, okay. So there's so many different elements that you can, or avenues you can go down, and that I think really shows a good roll and write.
Yes, I agree. And I like that because there's a lot of different avenues, but I think every avenue there's a chance to win.
Right.
Because, and I think that it's all fun. So that like getting the cards and building that engine and being like, ooh, now my actions are all stronger is a lot of fun. And you're watching someone else do it and you're like, I wish I had cards. I'm never going to win.
I know.
And the card person can win or they cannot win. Like, I think that's very cool. You're like, I'm going heavy goods. I'm just getting all these goods. And you're like, wow, you have so many goods. You filled up your entire board. That's a ton of points.
Yep.
Also, you have no cities circled, so your multiplier at the end sucks. So, like, there's such a good balance, I think, going on.
Yeah, and I didn't look at books initially, and I was getting a lot of cities, but I was multiplying all these cities by
A tiny
one.
little number.
So it's like, so towards the end, I just had this panic. I was like, I need books. So, and that's a fun feeling to feel like, it's almost over. And the game is short. It says 45 minutes, and it
is
probably
very
was
player
barely.
dependent. So I played this at 6. Especially with a talkative 6 group, and it felt a lot longer because you play through as many rounds as you have.
Okay.
People. And so I think the number of turns per person is the same because you add more chips and stuff like that. Like
Okay, that
you're
makes
doing
sense.
more bags, more rounds. So
Right.
I think per person you get the same amount of turns, but you're doubling the player count
Right.
at that point. I think it was fine at 2. because there's a little bit of interaction, but not too much interaction. I think 2-player, it's absolutely fine. I think 6-player, it's absolutely fine. I would probably play it at 3 or 4 for the sweet spot.
I think it's perfect, and I think it's one of those that you want a game to feel like it's a little bit too short. That's what you want to feel, because you feel like you're getting there. It's like, if I had one more turn. That's a feeling I like in a game.
Because you didn't do everything.
Right.
Because if everybody did everything, there wouldn't be a winner. Yeah.
Now, negative-wise...
we didn't talk about this yet.
We didn't talk about that,
Oh.
The artwork, again, we said how the artwork is similar, but it's also squished down in the top. So when you try to figure out, there were so many times that you're looking at the coin you've got and you're like, is that the token? Is that, because it's like, it's not clear at all.
It is not. So because they added in the virtual play option onto every single page, they had to shrink down everything else. And then the printing and the coloring was not very crisp. It was not very clear. And so the on the paper, red, brown, black, gray all look the same. Like, they all have a very similar background, and so you're trying to, like, in very tiny print, figure out, is this a dude standing tall? Is this a dude with an axe? Is this a dude that's, like, got his hands on his hips?
I gave up on black and gray and all that. I'm just trying to look at the position and see what they're holding and
which direction are they faced?
That's exactly it. And I know it's an art style people like, but I'm like, why not vibrant colors? Especially when you have to differentiate between some tokens and you have to do it fairly quick. I mean, because you want to know what you have, and that right there, I don't understand why they didn't just.
It's a usability issue.
It really is.
It becomes and the capstone version is a little bit brighter so that you can tell which tile is red on your map, on your paper.
Right.
Like, it's a little bit better, but it's still far from what it should have been. And so that's really sad, because I think for me, this could have been an 8.5. But it's going to be an 8 because of the usability issues. And I still obviously very much loved it. I think is absolutely fun. I like that it feels a little bit different than other roll and writes because of that drafting system. And so I think that's unique. It makes it a little bit more fresh feeling. And then having those roots in Orleans was fun. So it's an 8 for me.
It's an 8. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I think it would be a lot higher. I came in a little bit lower than a 7.5, mainly because which is weird. You thought it'd be higher than you did. I really enjoyed it, but I had a lot of problems with just figuring out what colors were what. And I understand they're trying to have that nostalgia of the original, try to keep as much as the original artwork. But you know what? Make it brighter. Still the original artwork.
Make it bigger, make it brighter, make it visible, yeah.
Yeah, so that I think I did come in, because I do like roll and writes. I think my wife would love this one. But I don't know, just that vague, it's almost like they take this beige blanket over there, turn the opacity down to 20%, and just, that's it. We want things to be dull, like they've been sitting out in the sun for a year. So I don't know, but the game itself is solid, and it's fun, and it's quick. That's the big thing.
It is. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Joey Evans.
And have fun rolling and writing in New Orleans.
And drawing and writing.
Or in the original Orleans.
The new one?
It's not the new one.
Not the new one. It's the original.
The old one.
The OG Orleans, as the kids say.
That's right.